Back now with our breaking news on the deadly ICE shooting in Minneapolis. Moments ago, CNN obtained video from an ICE officer's cell phone that captures the confrontation with Renee Good that preceded, at least in part, her shooting. A DHS official confirms the video was recorded on the agent's cell phone camera. We do warn you, there is profanity. This is disturbing content. Here it is.
I'm not mad at you. Show your face. I'm not mad at you. That's okay. We don't change our plates every morning, just so you know. It'll be the same plate when you come talk to us later. That's fine. U.S. citizen, former fucking veteran. You want to come at us? You want to come at us? I say go get yourself some lunch, big boy. Go ahead.
Out of the car. Get out of the fucking car. Get out of the car. Oh! Fucking bitch.
CNN's Josh Campbell is standing by to walk us through this. We also have John Miller with us, who we'll bring in here momentarily. Josh, take us through this.
Well, this is a critical new angle. This was the actual vantage point of the officer. And we know that not many immigration officers actually wear body-worn cameras. But in this instance, the immigration agent was holding his phone up, essentially filming this encounter, which we can now see in this video obtained by our colleague Holmes Librand. So in the video, you see that the officers are making contact with Renee Good there. She's parked somewhat perpendicular in a street, and there's another woman that's there, which is outside the vehicle, and you can tell, as the exchange there with Renee Good, that she's being somewhat pleasant. The other woman is kind of mouthy, and this is obviously a bit tense. She tells the agent at one point, why don't you go get some lunch, big boy. You also see critically, and I'll get to this in a second, bystanders behind the vehicle. We've seen other angles. This one shows us again the vantage point of that officer. Another agent orders Renee Good out of the vehicle. This agent then walks around. That is the moment that she then takes off. And on that audio, what we hear, it appears that you can actually hear friction on the phone. It appears from other angles that the agent was indeed struck by that vehicle, but you hear on the audio, it appears friction on the phone. That could be from the vehicle strike. That could be from, the phone on his clothing. But then it appears 3 shots were fired after that. And then you hear afterwards, someone, it appears maybe an immigration agent who was there, actually, used profanity, calling her an effing B, which we heard on the audio there. Now let's talk about the tactics for a second. So, I can tell you this as a former federal agent, that law enforcement officers can use deadly force only when necessary, when they believe that there is an imminent threat to their life. In this instance, you have a moving vehicle that's coming at that agent. Now, the driver, Renee Good, did turn the wheel to the right. So it appears that she wasn't, coming head on at that agent, trying to mow him over. But nevertheless, an agent in that split second, decision would have to make that calculation. Am I in danger? Is my life threatened here? Agents are also taught, what are other options? Could you move out of the way? And that's why this has been such a contentious issue here, the judgment, the decision of that agent to actually open fire. We've heard, obviously people supporting that decision, others being quite critical. One other thing I want to note is that when agents undergo training, and not just the feds, but law enforcement across the country, it is a cardinal rule that you are responsible for every round that you fire. And one key component of that is, to the extent that you have the time and you must be aware of what is beyond your shot, what is in the background. Here, it appears from that video that this other woman who had been engaging in with the agent was quite clearly in the line of fire, but there were also other people that were standing behind that car on the sidewalk, and this is a residential area. And so I'm sure that will face some scrutiny as well. The officer opening fire at that moment, directly, it appears towards those other people beyond the shot, and then his partners, and you brought this up, Brianna, just the other day, his partners are there in close range as well. And so this will be heavily scrutinized from a tactical perspective as well about the officer opening fire. But again, just critical new video here that we're seeing, an important angle, what the officer would have been seeing in the moment.
Yeah, the other officers from the other vantage point having a pronounced sort of physical reaction as the shooting happens as well. It's a tense situation between protesters and federal agents that we have been watching unfold as we speak. Local and state officials at this moment demanding the federal government allow them to have a role in the investigation. Let's head straight to Hennepin County, Minnesota, right outside of Minneapolis, where our Whitney Wild is outside of the federal building where ICE stages. Whitney, just set the scene for us. Last we spoke with you, we saw that there appeared to be some new concrete stanchions that were being put up, but now there appear to be some more protesters arriving.
Yeah, sorry, we're getting the pepper spray now. So forgive me, I have to pull my shirt up to talk to you, if you guys can still hear me. So here's what just happened. There are a handful of people here who are, you hear that song, Ice Ice Baby, they're playing that, they're saying we love ice, and they're getting in the mix with the crowd. And this is someone who seems here intent on agitating these protesters, saying that he loves ICE and he's getting in the mix, again, with a couple of other folks here. So here's what you're seeing. These federal law enforcement moving out, pushing the crowd back. They've let off dozens at this point of pepper balls to try to move the crowd back. They've gone, pepper balls we've seen go as far in as the parking lot here across the street. This came just minutes after they put down those new concrete pylons so that no one would be able to drive or even really walk into the driveway here at the federal building or in St. Paul. So this is the type of thing we're seeing throughout the day where protesters are clashing with federal law enforcement. Federal law enforcement has a low bar for anything that they think is about to get out of control. So when they started to see this clash between protesters and this lone sort of anti-protester, they intervened and began to push the crowd back. And now you're not seeing it right at this moment, but minutes ago we saw them detonate pepper balls at the crowd here. Back to you guys.
And so, Earl, explain to us, this has been a bit of a change over the course of the day, and you've been there throughout the day, Whitney. So take us through kind of what you've seen, because there have been moments where things have been calm and there have been moments where they have been tense.
Right, absolutely. So that's absolutely right. This picked up again when there was that anti-protester here, again, someone who says that he's pro-ICE. And so like you're saying, throughout the day, it sort of ebbs and flows. This is a bigger crowd than we've seen so far. Earlier today, we saw a couple of people who were detained after one woman slapped the side of a law enforcement vehicle. We really see the agitation pick up when they start to get close to law enforcement, or they feel like law enforcement's pushing them back, but it has been pretty calm. We've only seen a couple of flare-ups until this point. This, I think, so far is the most dramatic flare-up we've seen between the protesters here and federal law enforcement. Brianna.
Much. Meantime, we have breaking news. Brand new cell phone video we've just gotten in showing a very different angle of that deadly Minneapolis ICE shooting. This video was obtained by Alpha News. Apparently, it is actually from the cell phone of the ICE officer who shot Renee Good. The video has already been shared on social media by Vice President J.D. Vance and reposted by the White House. I want to warn you, you will hear some expletives in this video. We don't know who says them. And just generally, the video is disturbing. Michael Feinberg, former special agent in charge with the FBI and an MS Now national security and intelligence analyst. This is very different from the videos we've seen before. What do you see from an investigative standpoint?
Frankly, law enforcement officers overreacting to what admittedly might be some sarcastic and lightly combative civilians, but I don't see a situation that would require the application of deadly force. The reason law enforcement officers are supposed to be vetted before they join, and the reason they go through extensive training, is that two of the qualities you need to exhibit the most are emotional maturity and an ability to keep your cool. And getting heckled, getting videotaped, anything related to those two activities, that's part of the job. Somebody filming you on a cell phone and giving you sass is not a threat to your life. It's not even a threat to your safety. It's a minor annoyance.
Friend, thank you for being here today. You have just witnessed the raw, unfiltered reality of what the state calls law enforcement and what the prosecutors are now calling intentional murder. The footage you just saw is difficult to process, not just because of the violence, but because of the sheer senselessness of it. We are looking at a federal agent, a man sworn to uphold the Constitution, firing a weapon at a departing vehicle in a crowded residential area. But the story here is not merely about one rogue officer losing his composure. If we only focus on the man behind the gun, we miss the much larger, darker picture. We are looking at a rot that extends from that sidewalk in Minnesota all the way to the highest levels of political leadership. What you are seeing now is a growing realization that the criminality is confirmed. And this is why they wanted to hide this information and why it is so critical that the people are finally seeing it. Let us first dismantle the narrative that was built before this video was released. For days, the political spin machine, led by figures like J.D. Vance and echoed by the former president, attempted to paint this victim as a far-left agitator. They tried to sell you a story that this woman was a secret threat to the United States, a dangerous radical who posed an imminent risk to federal agents. That was the script. But look at the reality we just watched. The video evidence destroys that narrative completely. What we saw was not a terrorist. We saw a regular mom. Her behavior was not that of a criminal mastermind. It was the behavior of a citizen engaging in sarcasm. When she says, "I am fine," and brushes off the interaction, she is acting with a level of human frustration that anyone watching this can understand. It is, as the commentary noted, the most regular mom thing ever. She was dismissive, yes. She was annoyed, certainly. But in a free society, being annoyed at a government agent is not a capital offense. The disconnect between the political lie and the visual truth exposes a terrifying reality. The system did not just fail to protect her, it actively tried to vilify her to justify her death. But this is the part no one dares to say aloud. The system didn't just fail to protect her, it actively tried to vilify her. We have to talk about the device in the officer's hand. And I am not talking about the gun yet. I am talking about the cell phone. This is the paradox of modern authority that we witnessed in that clip. We have a federal agent trained to handle high-stress situations who entered that confrontation with one hand on his weapon and the other hand holding up a smartphone to record the interaction. Why, as the former FBI agent noted in the footage, this is not standard procedure. This is the behavior of a content creator, not a peace officer. We are witnessing a shift in the psychology of power, where the desire to capture a viral moment or to win a social media argument takes precedence over de-escalation. When that officer approached the vehicle, he was not acting as a guardian of the peace. He was acting as a participant in a culture war. He wanted the footage. He wanted the confrontation. And this is where the tragedy becomes psychological. When the victim refused to play her part in his movie, when she simply drove away and denied him the submission he felt he was owed, his ego took over. The phone went down and the gun came up. It signals a profound lack of emotional maturity. Getting heckled, getting ignored, or even getting insulted is part of the job of public service. It is unpleasant, but it is not a threat to life. Yet in that split second, the officer decided that a bruise to his authority was worth the price of a human life. And that is exactly when everything changed. The trigger wasn't just pulled by a finger, it was pulled by a culture of impunity. Now we must address the defense that is currently being floated by the officer's legal team and his political allies. The argument is that this particular officer may have acted out of trauma stemming from an incident where he was hit by a vehicle a few months prior. Let us look at this argument with the intellectual rigor it deserves. We do not know if that trauma is clinically real, but let us assume, for the sake of a good faith argument, that it is true. If this officer was suffering from severe post-traumatic stress related to vehicles, why was he on the street? Why was he placed in a chaotic environment armed with a lethal weapon and authorized to make life or death decisions? This is where the charge of intentional murder against the officer expands into an indictment of criminal negligence against the entire Department of Justice and the political apparatus that commands it. If the leadership knew he was compromised and they sent him out anyway, they are complicit. This reveals a systemic failure where political rhetoric about tough policing overrides basic safety protocols. The leadership, from the very top down, has spent years reinforcing aggressive behavior, telling agents that they are under siege, and encouraging a warrior mentality against the very citizens they are paid to serve. They took a person who, by their own admission, may have been mentally unfit for duty, and they weaponized him. They placed him in a situation that would trigger his instability. If he was traumatized, he should have been on desk duty. He should have been filing paperwork, not pointing a firearm at a mother in a minivan. By failing to filter their own agents and by feeding them a steady diet of paranoia and aggression, the institutions of power played a direct role in this murder. They created the conditions where this was inevitable. So where does this leave us? We are left with a philosophical reckoning. We are witnessing a realization that the institutions meant to serve the people are often protected from the people. The video captures more than just a crime. It captures the collapse of the social contract. When a citizen can be killed for driving away, and when the immediate reaction of the state is to lie about her character, we are no longer dealing with justice. We are dealing with tyranny, masked as order. A mother is gone. She is gone, not because she posed a threat to the nation, but because she posed a threat to an agent's ego. She is gone because a system valued its own authority over her humanity and preferred political spin over the uncomfortable truth. The silence that follows those 3 shots in the video is deafening. It is the silence of a life cut short, and it is a silence that demands we look past the headlines and understand the deep structural flaws that allowed this to happen. This was not an accident. It was the logical conclusion of a system that has forgotten who it is supposed to work for.